Hi, Jason.
Grant, how are you today?
Good, sir. Sorry that I cut it right there on the nose, but I was literally on another kind of podcasty sort of thing, and I had to make sure to log off properly.
Yeah, of course. How's your day been so far? Good?
Really intense, good. Thank you. My mother flew in, who's also co-founder, to meet her grandson for the first time. My son was born the other day. So
wow, congratulations.
Thank you. A lot happening, and thanks for reaching out, and would love to, talk more on the side privately after,
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I wanted to be able to have a kind of a bit of a public conversation just about what you folks are doing. The almost classified as the eBay for space. In, I guess, February 2022, you guys launched its initial private sale for a payload for space, essentially enabling suppliers to send. You've just been doing a lot of stuff here. You've been doing a lot of things. So I just wanted to kind of get an update. I think you guys have brought on some new advisors as well. Was it Kevin O'Connell to your advisory board as well.
Yeah,
So-
really big for us.
Yeah. So for those who are listening and will listen, I just wanted a quick breakdown of what you folks are doing and what the next quarter looks like. So.
Okay. Sure. You want me to get going into that question right away?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. If you feel good. Yeah.
Well, maybe some quick background on the project overall and why it exists in the first place.
Yeah, the catalyst would be great.
Yeah. So I got started at my first startup around digital media. So I'm really originally focused on how these platforms work, and how these assets are moved, monetized, and rewarded. That got me into blockchain tech early 2012ish, 13ish. I viewed it as a foundational solution to really how the digital economy is going to be working in the future and needs to work in the future. Eventually, I co-founded CoinFirm, which is a global leader around analytics and AML for crypto. But I'm third generation aerospace. So this story actually starts with my grandfather, who helped create the astronaut program for Poland and had these early writings around the idea of democratizing access to space. And that family torch has been carried by my mother, who's also a co-founder in Copernic Space and helped kind of define this vision in the beginning, because of our experiences, her experiences, my experiences that we had together in the space economy, and noticing the vital need and opportunity that Copernic Space serves. Which is, okay, the space economy is going to grow rapidly. It's going to become one of the most important and largest markets in mankind's history. But to do so, it needs to switch over to what we call and view ourselves as an economic operating system. The whole way as to what we call space assets are accessible, commercialized, turned into an asset, a true space asset in our case. And also how space is being financed needs to change, and it needs to operate on more of a Web3 foundation than it does, on the kind of digital economy for the most part, the way it operates today. And we combined all these backgrounds, experiences that we had, and about 6 years ago, we started defining it, going through discovery, really learning about how to create a solution that the space economy can use right away, is valuable for them, but also enables wider commercial and for the first time ever retail access to the space market. So I left CoinFirm in 2020, focused on Copernic Space, and we've been working to bring the first true digital commercialization standard for space assets, and also create true space assets in the marketplace for it.
And can you dive deeper into the space assets and kind of how that's been received, and maybe tie that to some of the folks that you're bringing on from an advisory capacity?
Yeah, for us, space assets can represent, pretty much all products, services, and create a whole new aspect of an asset in space, such as fractional ownership, licensing, etc. So we get various reactions because we're doing with the marketplace. Because like I said, there's two sides to what we're doing. There's the commercialization, the space asset end, and then there's the financing end, right? So from the space asset end, there's two things that we're doing. Is we're taking these companies, we're making them more discoverable in the commercial market. We're streamlining and scaling up the processes to commercialize their products or services. And then we're turning them into actual assets through NFTs that allow for more utility, more commercialization, also attach it to the retail market. So really where we're in the game of defining what a true space asset is and creating the market for it itself. So it's a very hard question to answer. And various different types of people have a different perspective to what a space asset is. So actually what we're doing, and this is through my lessons in the regulatory space around crypto and blockchain assets overall, is not repeating the same mistake that crypto made early on. We're working with proper legal people from both space as well as the crypto and securities end to define what are space assets, which ones should be treated as securities, which ones shouldn't be treated as securities, so that really it's the leaders in the market setting the standard, as opposed to, potentially people who might come in and not really understand it and start setting standards.
And so I'm just reading this piece in the Space News here. So to summarize your statement, so the Copernic space platform is designed to make it easy for people to acquire, access, buy, and sell space assets, payloads, venture tokens, and services. And then to your point, you're working with regulators to ensure that this, is a reality that gets executed, very quickly, and then has the support of the policymakers and so forth as things become more defined and the market continues to emerge.
Yeah, we actually, interesting enough, I had a conversation recently with a lawyer around space, and they said, listen, we're really observing what you're doing, because of how we have it structured. We're a Web3 platform, so we're non-intermediary around the assets, the transactions. We're facilitating the economic activity between, parties. So from a regulatory sense and all that, we're really fascinating, because we're pushing the new standards and boundaries around how things are commercialized, et cetera. But we're actually not exposing ourselves at all to much risk as a company. It's all a decision between, the space companies and the buyers, and the agreements that they do together. So for example, the Lunar Outpost case, there's two types of sales to it, right? There's, hey, I'm buying enough to physically send payload up to the moon, right? And that has a whole different interface and experience, where you can share agreements. If you don't want to do transaction on chain, you can share invoicing, et cetera. So in that process, they're signing agreements between each other. When it comes to that more public virtual payload, right, buying fractional ownership of the payload, et cetera,
right,
that's a much more Web3 experience, but you're still signing off on terms. But from a legal and regulatory aspect around what we're doing, there's not much in the way. Where our main concern is later on, once we get into the DeFi application, the financing thing, is making sure that we have our backs covered around securities aspect.
And the sentence that I see going around the web quite a bit, and something you've said, is the vision is to combine Amazon's e-commerce platform with Robinhood Markets commission-free trading application for space, essentially. So you're kind of combining these two ideas, and then as the market emerges, kind of continuing to build to ensure that the transactions or the ability to get access to those assets are just solid, and kind of building around that community as the demand grows.
Yeah, and just so we kind of, we're not going to be commission free, by the way,
Right.
but we sometimes reference those sort of comparisons, because what we're doing, like, nobody's ever come to anybody and gave them the opportunity to be like, hey, you want to buy this asset and you can send something to the moon, and then you can like transform it and resell it. It's a very, to most, it's a very unique offering, what we're doing. So we're always fighting around how to best communicate. That's one of the biggest struggles around something like this, is how do you communicate and educate, your base. Right. So we sometimes refer to certain things like that, so people get an understanding. It's like, oh, okay. Like, people thought it was crazy to buy books online when Amazon first started, and they told Bezos he's crazy.
Yeah.
Right. But now we don't even question that experience. Right.
Yeah.
So we're very much around this Web3 thing. We're very much in that same moment in history. And, Copernic space represents that in a big way, just for this revolution that's going to be the space economy.
Yeah, definitely. And talk to me, we've seen some NFT stuff. This is an article that was from last year. And the topic of NFTs, digital assets, and so forth, we've actually seen over the last few launches. I think Axiom Space launched their own NFT. I think I purchased that for $20, and it's somewhere in some wallet somewhere. I think that they're whatever the wallet they were using. But yeah, talk to me a bit about that.
They're custodians over your NFT.
I don't remember the actual transaction. I just remember seeing as an end user.
That's very interesting in crypto. I don't remember the transaction. I don't know what I bought is. That's very interesting.
It is, right? Like, I mean, for the last, we were early investors in definitely in Bitcoin in 2012 and whatnot, and followed that. that and believed in what was happening. And now we're getting more into, going back to the Axiom NFT. I saw it on Twitter. I said, you know what, this is really neat. I forget again. I'll have to go through, my history and remember where did I buy it and how am I maintaining, keeping it, storing it. But anyways, the long and net of it is that as a fan of the space economy, I wanted to support them. I thought it was really neat. I just like how I collected comic books and how I did all that stuff and still do that, and posters or whatever, because I see value in buying a poster, original Star Wars poster, right? So so talk to me a bit about the last 12 months as it relates to cryptocurrency, blockchain. We saw a huge upside of the market swing, and then now we've kind of got destabilization taking place within the global economy. But obviously, anybody that understands cryptocurrency, understands NFT marketplace and digital assets, understands that these are long-term holds. And how are you folks approaching keeping track of just all these changes in the market? Because the last 24 months have been insane, right? Like the inflation going here, people changing where they're prioritizing what they're spending money on. I remember just buying tons of digital assets off of the Vive app, VEVE, for those that are using that, and buying those NFTs, that Disney was releasing and so forth, and holding them as assets. So I don't know if you want to speak to that or just speak in general to what you're seeing in the market right now as it relates to cryptocurrency and digital assets.
Well, we're hyper focused on what we feel represent. There's so much to say to answer to everything you brought up around that. So even in the past 3 months, we've seen loads of space related NFT projects come out. Space DAOs, we're partnered with some of these projects, etc. You mentioned the Axiom thing. Just one thing to that is that all these things are either throwing it on OpenSea, or they're trying to build their own little micro things, and it's kind of perpetuating a lot of the problems that kind of exist in the space industry today itself, which is this segmentation around everywhere. So we view ourselves as the home for all of these assets that these entities are going to be generating. More entities are going to be generating, and we're going to facilitate all this stuff. So once again, there has to be that underlying platform and economic operating system created specifically for space assets, whether that's a space art thing, which we're going to come out with Spaceables soon, which we always plan to do, but we got so much market pressure from all these entities to provide a space art, collectibles, even music marketplace, because they just want a place to put it, or people want a place to go and find space. So like OpenSea doesn't provide certain features that are needed for space assets. We get into fractionalization, embedding licensing, preventing Chinese nationals from buying ownership of a space asset, whether it's primary or secondary sale. So, whether it's Axiom doing that, it's, there's a few other projects doing this. Those are all to be hosted on us. Right. So, to dumb it down, like, we brought up the Amazon, the eBay, the Robinhood. To dumb it down, we're like OpenSea for space, except we're not just dealing with collectibles and things like that. We're dealing with ownership, access, utilization of true space assets, whether that's fractional ownership of payload, whether that's satellite data and imagery, or whether it's something cool like some art or, a collectible of something of that. So, So back to what you're saying, in the past 3 months, we've seen an absolute change, and investors are starting to look at us differently as well, right? Like when we started communicating, people are like, okay, this sounds absolutely ridiculous. The same people X months later come back, they're like, okay, we're starting to understand, right? Yeah. We're not here to sell NFTs. We're here to provide the marketplace, the economic operating system for space assets, products, services, and investments.
Got it. And you had a big win here with bringing Kevin O'Connell on. Do you want to speak a little bit to that and what how that plays into that long-term strategy and vivid vision?
Yeah, Kevin's a big, outside of him as a person, everything that he provides, just someone like him coming on board the way he has is like a signal. It's like if a person who is in those positions or was in those positions And the story is nice and personal between us. He reached out to me, and I was speaking at Satellite 2020 in DC.
And
We
he's a
met.
former director of the U.S. Office of Space Commerce, just for. Yep.
Yeah, and he was also in the office of the vice president, and he's uh, he's in front of Congress the other day, and he's doing more stuff. So he's a go-to guy around all this stuff, and he advises countless influential companies. Privateer, I believe, is one of the newest ones he's working with. So it's a signal to the market, where a guy like that sits down with me and within X amount of minutes gets what we're about and sees the value of it. Because really, we're a macroeconomic solution for space, and Kevin's always focused and really been pushing like, hey, the private industry and the macroeconomic aspect needs to be addressed, and that'll help the other things fall in line. So Kevin's been very active from day one. We just announced it recently. He's been working up with us for quite a bit. And he's not only helping us validate what we do to kind of these upper echelons of the more, let's say, traditional side of the space economy, but he's on the ground working with us around how to solve a lot of these issues that we want to solve long term, like how do we incentivize and create a commercial or an investment market for space debris solutions, which you have a unique consideration you have to take in when you're funding that sort of stuff. That's why we think the retail market being empowered to have access to it and have a liquid asset that they get out of it is going to change how the game runs.
Talk to me a bit about this. Has this already taken place, or is this?
Yeah, this already took place last week. And we've been very active. That birth of Copernic Space, a lot of it happened near Vandenberg, now Space Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been there on the ground for quite a while, and we're one of the few, if not only, kind of space companies that got that invite. And it was focused on space debris. And Kevin, once again, is big focus on space debris, is known from that end. So I wasn't able to go, but Lady Rocket, my mother and co-founder, who's also very active in the region, lives in LA, did go there and got to meet the vice president and address this issue. So like I said, we want to provide a marketplace and a financial system that helps solve these issues by involving the retail market, people that have an emotional connection or have the risk tolerance around it, and collectively have more capital than these VCs or governments if you put them together. And we saw that with ICOs. You've been around crypto long enough, so you remember the ICO thing.
Yeah,
the world outfunded all the VCs, all the investors, for about 2 years around this technology. We saw it with GameStop, and et cetera, last year. Like, if you emotionally get the public and funnel that, it'll eat the biggest hedge fund. And with us, space is the most ubiquitously loved thing in the world. The first paintings of mankind are of us looking at the stars, or the stars themselves. So I can keep going around all this.
And you guys just launched a Discord community as well, is that right?
Yeah, so we're focusing a little bit more as we're leading up to the launch of the Lunar Outpost sale on the wider public market. We're also going to be releasing some of our own collectibles to help kind of incentivize, build community, because really it's about building a market for this in a certain aspect. People, once again, have never been given the opportunity to have economic access or ownership in space. So we're very focused on that education and communication leading up to these asset sales on a wider perspective.
Yeah, wonderful. I know you've got the little one and you've got a whole bunch of family there, so I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No. Please, I busted out the whole hour for you.
I just wanted to touch base, and you've got quite a few different events happening right now in terms of just all these great advisors coming on board, the Vivid Vision continuing to be clarified, this activity here with building that community with the Discord piece. I thought we would try and push that out there.
Thank you.
It's just exciting stuff for me. My journey. Carvalho Capital, which is my family office, started investing. We did 5 investments in the space tech companies last year, and really just started to kind of get involved. Right, we're newbies, if you will, to what's taking place. And the exciting thing is that we're just living in a really exciting time where it's so early on. But there's 90 years of history in building the space economy, but really the next 7 years, I think, are going to be the defining years that will, the infrastructure years where we really see that next level of change taking place. And I think that's what you folks are really trying to set yourself up for, and enable and create and help those that want to be a part of that, next 7 to 10 years of where we're going to see tremendous upside from a return on investment perspective, direct access to assets we've never seen before, classifications of assets that are just going to help define a new generation of sustainability for the earth, as well as from an SROI perspective, but also wealth for those that want to get involved and power it forward.
Yeah, really glad you said all that. You really represent like this, like I mentioned, the communication, the education aspect is one of the biggest hurdles for a company like us and what we're doing. So, the entrance of people such as yourself who have this background, who get crypto or have been active around it in some sense, have a passion for space or starting to do investments in space, represents, like you said, this kind of new foundation for this. And space right now is kind of like crypto 6 years ago in a certain aspect.
Yeah.
Like it needs every type of person to come into it. It needs different types of marketers. Lots of different types of people have an opportunity right now to come in and kind of plant their flag, right? And we just want to provide, once again, the foundational market that enables all of these people, these great entrepreneurs in space, to go about what they're doing much better, much more streamlined, and attract a whole new user customer base as well. And on the flip side, just enable all these. You can't imagine how many different types of companies have come to us just around the payload space to the moon thing idea. Like insane amounts and variations, and people don't realize that's another struggle around the communication education. Like it's not just Musk and NASA and a couple other billionaires. Like there's hundreds and thousands of companies, and then there's thousands of companies and millions of people that are demanding an entry into all this stuff. And what you're seeing once again these kind of segmented projects that are providing certain experiences, but there's no foundational layer where this is where you go and how all this stuff operates and how you can access it all, manage it all in one place. Just like, we very rarely do people go to, the website of each shoe that they want to buy and buy it off the website. It's a much more collective experience. So we just feel where the, that new foundation and maturation of the space economy.
Yeah, for sure. No, I get it. And I loved it. And I wanted to begin, kind of track the story. For me, I'm doing a live stream on a regular basis and pushing out to our newsletter and our folks. This will be recorded and kind of kept live on YouTube. And I think, every single time I have a conversation with a founder over the last 15 months, it's been, we need more PR. We need more marketing. We need to have a forum where we can have intellectual discussion and realize that this is very, very exciting for, my father-in-law, who's an old, Danish guy living in the middle of North Sydney, Nova Scotia. In southern Nova Scotia, they're launching, spaceport up here in Canada. I'm in Toronto, but that spaceport is going to power a significant amount of change in the economic region. And everybody from that, to the young, wide-eyed, developer at 16 years old who's wanting to get out there and be a part of, finding a purpose in the world. The space economy is allowing for that to take place right now in a way that we've never seen before. And to summarize your feedback, you're trying to be that operating system for that, so people can come to it, get access and visibility to these different assets and different opportunities where they can capitalize in a positive way the change that essentially is coming. And that is really where the opportunity is. If you're starting to talk about this, on Bay Street or on Wall Street, you're sitting on a crosswalk and somebody's talking about it, you might have already missed the opportunity. And this is really what the opportunity is for anybody that's listening or reading this information. Is now is the time to get involved and dedicate time to learning more about how to build one's own personal life around the opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, the space asset class is going to be the largest and most important asset class that's going to exist in probably mankind's history. I was just in a discussion around the whole idea of mining asteroids and what kind of asset class is that going to represent and what kind of value is it going to have compared to how the assets are structured on Earth right now. People don't realize, Space is technically a $500 billion industry or market right now. We think it's already $1 trillion market. It's just no one's facilitating the transactional element of it. Kevin believes that very soon it'll be $3 trillion, and that 1 trillion of it will be around lunar, right? And like a lot of people don't understand, yes, Lunar Outpost is sending a rover, first one on lunar South Pole. It has Nokia's 4G internet on it. We're going to be putting, selling some payload through it. It's going to be picking up, soil for NASA, et cetera. And that's where Artemis lands later, and then, can take out that soil. There's lots of companies that are working on building infrastructure on the moon. People don't understand, to what level and how fast this is going to be happening, and that a solution like ours is going to take place. It has to take place, right? This is just the progression of it.
Exactly. To your point about the space mining, here's a great company. They've been around for a while now, Offworld.ai, and they've been building robots and working, in mines here on the terrain, and have been doing an exceptional job of building out the part of the infrastructure that's going to be required for robotics. Is going to be a key asset to going out and being able to ensure that any work that's being done off-world is being done where the OpEx is significantly lower than what it might be in a mine on Earth. Having these species of robots that are able to go out and do different things like cut through the rock, be able to take the rock, sort through it using AI, find the minerals, and then clean it up and then push it out to wherever it needs to kind of go. So to your point, we're seeing a significant amount of this activity already. Just the quote unquote average consumer isn't really aware of it as of yet.
Well, even more importantly, for that, they're not aware of it because really there's not a place for them to discover it in any sort of central manner. But my guess is this company's largest struggle is, what's going to be, if not is okay, how do we really attain these large levels of financing in an efficient and effective way that helps us build these what will become space assets available, on our marketplace. So, with a lot of projects like that, we feel that the models that we're building are actually going to represent how most of these projects fund these big leaps in advancement. So, for example, with something like that, like they want to build something that is going to do X on the moon, right? And they have some track record, legitimacy, et cetera. What they can do, for example, and we hope to bring this as a model within the next year or two, on the space pool. So space pools are DeFi financing sort of end of the platform, which is they'll go, okay, well, let's tokenize, let's say half of it, make that available as a space pool campaign to the retail market. It's their NFTs, what they're buying. The NFTs rights and ownership are tied to a percentage of future revenue generated by this commercial endeavor. And that's how you can leverage the public and the retail market. And they get an NFT that represents certain rights. And there's a secondary market. Maybe they don't want to wait, X amount, or maybe they, want to sell it off. And then there's a secondary market where they can sell it to somebody else who now has the rights to that, as long as they pass, the KYC or whatever requirements the asset creator might have. Around it. And that's how the market is going to look and work and operate. There's of course still going to be a place for government funds and VCs in that sort of way. But my guess is that VCs will also be participating in models like this, just like VCs now. It would be a lot easier for Copernic Space fundraising if I just had a token. Right. I could go, even VCs now are buying tokens. They're more interested in having a liquid asset through a token with a company than they are having in shares. Because, shares are awesome, but they're extremely illiquid assets. And that's a big struggle around space is like, okay, I just invested in X. What's my liquidity event timeline? 10 years if I'm lucky? Yeah. So there's, it's more about the models behind it and providing the incentives that really fuels more investment.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that point about, whether it be a fund or LPs are investing in funds or funds themselves, the issue of capital being tied up is a large one. It's one that the current existing marketplace of finance loves. They love to tie up the money. They love to not be able to provide the liquidity. But to your point, what we're seeing now is the opportunity for those to get a return on investment more quickly than they would have, with other assets, with other products?
For us, by the way, to the return on investment thing, it's funny how people view what are investments, right? Like, should Pokemon cards be regulated by the SEC?
Right.
Should art be regulated by the SEC? Right? These are all interesting sort of questions. So that's why, earlier on I said we want to set the standard as to what is the definition of space assets and which ones should be securities, because obviously lots of things should be securities, and which ones shouldn't be, that represent, ownership. They provide some sort of utility. Also, a lot of people don't realize that how you communicate what you're doing fits into how it's regulated, right? So, space companies are selling ownership of assets that they're creating, right? How the market uses it and reacts to it, et cetera, is a whole different thing. Unless you want to lock up the guys, the creators of, Pokemon,
Right.
up right now, right?
Yeah, definitely. Talk to me a bit about the team that you've been assembling for some time now. I'm going to bring them up here on the screen here.
Yeah. So, and this is going to scale up. We're finishing up a financing round right now, like the first official one for Copernic Space, and I can get into why we didn't do a token to start off and why we'll be introducing one eventually. So co-founders are myself and my mother. This is a vision built off, once again, our experiences together, and she serves as not just a visionary behind it, but also a key strategic person who helps bring in opportunities or define strategic opportunities. Philip is someone I worked with for years before. He also worked at CoinFirm, which I was a co-founder of. So he's already worked on successful, progressive, complex products around the blockchain space. Recently, we added Farrell as the chief operating officer, to do a lot of things. We've thrown a lot at him right away. But one is obviously to help me focus on the biggest things and what I'm best at, and also help me kind of streamline management of operations, et cetera. A lot of entrepreneurs don't realize how much of their job and work actually just becomes less so the entrepreneurial things, but more of the managerial things. That's a big maturity step. And we have a great development team. I built this team mainly during COVID. So we're very unique because we're one of these companies that is spread around the world because we never had the opportunity to be centralized. And the advisory board is really something that is also very diverse. Everybody represents something else, right? So we mentioned Kevin. Kevin and Bobby represent, the space economy and industry from two different levels and angles, and Titus and Alex represent the investment and kind of the fintech and product end of what we're doing. So each one serves their unique purpose and their unique strengths, and it's just the beginning of building out, a really great team and culture around what we do. Once again, what we're doing is so new in a way that I don't think a lot of people realize the magnitude sometimes of what it is. So it's very important for us to continue building a team that is extremely dedicated to the vision and the mission behind what we do, and understand how important it is. This is my family legacy, right? Like, it's not something where I'm just trying to abstractly take crypto and shove it up into space. I've spent 6 years thinking about how to do this.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I do appreciate you joining. I know you and I can chat offline as well about the investment piece of things. And but I just, for me, I really appreciate jumping on. I'm trying to do this on a daily basis, being able to have some real time conversations about what's happening in space. A lot of it's siloed. A lot of it is, if you can't get to a conference in Miami, or you can't be in LA, you're not able to be exposed to this. And living in a world of 24/7, my hypothesis is that there's lots of individuals, investors, founders that want to continue to be a part of new opportunities. LPs that, I'm talking to on a daily basis through AngelList, through, I'm going to see some family offices next week. There are people that want to get exposed to opportunities, and this is really about community, right? Community needs to be educated and be supported to help kind of continue to build out what you're trying to do and what others are trying to do in terms of building the space economy of tomorrow.
Yeah, and I, keep spreading the good gospel around that. Our biggest challenge is really capacity, and the investor class needs to catch up a bit. Right.
Right.
That's a big thing. I mean, we're seeing the changes. Like I said,
Yeah.
like people within the past 3 months, they're starting to see it. Like if you're saying, a Web3 platform for space last year, it was an entirely different reaction. Timing is very important. So,
Yes.
for us, it's really about capacity, short-term capacity and financing. And then we feel it's just a matter of how properly we execute things around product and marketing. And we're very, very confident about what we're doing because we know that this is going to happen. It's a matter of who and how and when it's done.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, thanks for joining us. You and I should connect either after this, or we can connect, later on in the week, if that sounds good. I know you've got your hands full with the
Of
new
course.
little one. Is it a boy or girl that was born?
I got a 1.5-year-old girl, and now I got a 2-month-old approximately boy. So
Congratulations.
I'm pretty full. And my mother actually just flew in to meet him. So
Wonderful.
it's a micro circus, and I'm still, keeping the rocket fueled for
Yeah,
Copernic
rocket
space.
fuel go. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that for sure.
No,
So
no, Jason, really, like, these are maybe small but very important things, like conversations like this, people never know what it really starts. And if you can take the opportunity to explore potential opportunities, then you never know what comes out of it. One thing I realized is like the success and scale of things is really a chance by chance nature, as opposed to, executing a daily master plan. Is just things happen. So
yeah,
I
for sure.
appreciate, your
Yeah.
belief in what we're doing and reaching out.
Yeah, 100%. We'll do our best to kind of push that out through Carvalho Capital's investor base. We have a fund called Humanist, which we've been raising, which we'll push out. For me, just as an investor, this is all a big education, piece. And I sit in conversations with, funds or founders that are raising Series A, Series Bs, and you have unique companies being developed by either specialists that have been around for a long period of time, or completely brand new entrepreneurs that are building stuff. And the key thing here is spending the 10,000 hours to spend the time to talk to everyone, to learn more about what's going on. But for me, the vivid vision is that this next few years is going to be monumental. The ability to just get involved right now, that's where the opportunity lies. And so that's why I'm dedicating time to getting this thing up and running, pushing this out through Twitter, pushing this out through our newsletters, as I'm actively on the road talking to investors, being able to say, hey, look, we're talking with this company. Here's a little bite-sized video you can go and listen to about the founder talking about that. For me, that's how I'm trying to connect it all together to be of value to founders like yourself, and then obviously the general market. We've seen over the last little while companies like Payload Space emerge, an angel-backed 600K angel-backed media outlet now that is focusing on covering daily space. And we have others.
I know Mo and Ari.
Those guys are.
Behind them is interesting because there's some crypto financing. So what you're seeing is also a very interesting merge between the worlds of crypto capital and space investments. And it really just proves our case and our viewpoint that the biggest funders and financiers and buyers of space assets are actually going to be crypto related wealth, and new wealth class generating an even bigger new wealth class through space is going to be kind of how it goes. So yeah, it's great that people like you are stepping in at such a strong level.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to do the best that we can to get everything out here. We're really, I've been talking with quite a few PR firms here in Canada to support our portfolio companies and support the founders that maybe are not even our portfolio companies. I think it's good news to see more money and time being spent into the media aspect. I was on a call with a colleague of mine out of Vancouver yesterday, and this was actually an interview that we did 3 days ago, which is on the YouTube channel. He started a online media group called dailyhive.com and now runs OMG Media, and they have been buying up old media outlets across Canada. So all those magazines that are now kind of going under, they're buying those up and kind of keeping the history alive. And one of the things that we talked about was the connection of what is happening with space with the average individual living in city nowhere, and how important it is from a hope perspective to realize that there are people building the machinery, the infrastructure to get access to space, and how what's happening in space. So, for instance, the push of the requirement for cryptocurrency to be a default mechanism for how we do what we do on a daily basis, because no one's going to be going out there, here's a dollar bill here and here's a coin there. That just doesn't make any logical sense. So, in summary, being able to connect what little communities and their needs and wants are to this emerging space economy is something that I think we're all just trying to do, because it's all relative.
So an emerging user base for our platform actually is, and we strategize for this to happen, is DAOs, space-focused DAOs, which, it's just really a community of people focusing under a certain passion. Some are focused around space debris, others are more generally focused. That come under a certain passion, a collective emotional connection, and they put their might together and they accomplish missions around it, right? So we're also a platform that's going to be onboarding, all these communities and providing them verified assets and financing avenues in the tokenized environment to actually function properly as what they want to function in. So the community, the one thing that you really see with Web3 changing is that your sales and marketing is community based now. It's a very new switch over that a lot of these companies are going to have a very hard time in, because it's a culture change, So and then, by the way, Farrell, our COO, is in Canada as well. So I know it's a big country, but
yeah,
maybe you guys can connect. He's not he's in Toronto, but
I'm in Toronto as well, so that's perfect.
no, he's not in Toronto.
Oh, he's not in Toronto. Okay,
he's in Calgary. So,
but either way, okay.
Yeah, either way, you guys are. I'm like that ignorant American that talks.
You're close.
It's like, just walk down the street to Calgary.
You'll see them. Calgary's booming. There's quite a few, as you mentioned, space mining companies. There's quite a bit of activity. We invested in a company out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, called Waver, and they originally had some headquarters in Calgary as well. But yeah, nevertheless, you guys have an amazing remote team. You have a clear, vivid vision of what you're trying to build here. It's been a pleasure to be able to have you on board, this channel for just a little bit. And as I said, we're going to do our best to get the message out. I'm going to, get the editing team to edit out some of this stuff and see if we can continue to push it out on Twitter and LinkedIn. And like you said, this is a game of educating people, and this is just exciting stuff. So congratulations on all your success to date.
Thank you, man. And listen, I'm very use case action focused. So my goal out of this, at the very least, is that we onboard a few of those companies you invested in space and do some asset sales with them. That would be my minimum. Yeah. But minimum, that's the minimum. Okay. So
for sure.
Either way, thank you, Jason, once again.
Thank
and
you.
We'll talk very, very soon.
Sounds wonderful. Have a great day.
You too, buddy.
Take care. So we just finished up a great conversation with Grant, founder of Copernic Space. If you have been watching or tuning in, or you're watching this when it's recorded, please go ahead and take a look at the Discord that they have created in terms of community. As we mentioned on this call, this is really about educating folks on what exists. I love what Copernic is doing. It really is going to require just a bold thinking, and that's what these guys have. And as the market kind of emerges and we start to see a lot of traction, and individuals have been, in terms of asset classes, they're focusing on quite a few different things. We've seen, cannabis occupy the mind of retail investors for so long, and now we've seen, cryptocurrency occupy the mind of different investors. We're going to see space occupy the mind of investors as well. So for all those that tuned in, thanks very much. I'm going to push it out this end the broadcast, push it out live to YouTube. You can rewatch this again. My thanks again to the team here at Copernic Space for just building what they're building. It's very, very exciting stuff. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back in a few hours in terms of live streaming. Emily Cheng and Bloomberg Television will be having their 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time technology report, which we want to be a part of, and we'll kind of walk through the daily activities in the market. Thanks everyone. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.